Joining us now at the table is Democratic Senator Peter Welch of Vermont and Democratic Congressman Dave Min of California. This month, they announced a major oversight effort into several pardons and commutations issued by Donald Trump that raised concerns over corruption and abuse of power. I almost choked on the issue because I'm like, what is going on here?
Well, we got Vermont and Connecticut at the table. Senator, I want to start with you because I want to sort of piggyback off of our first segment with Senator Markey and his effort to call for impeachment because of this slush fund and what it portends and what it really means and how it undermines the foundations of the Constitution. Simone gave us a quick lesson on where the founders were on this. What do you see here as the off-ramp for Republicans? You talked to them. Mitch McConnell came out today. Very strong statement, right? But as I noted as we began the show, Mitch McConnell gave a very strong statement on January 6th, too, but then did the backstroke as fast as he could off of impeachment, right?
Right.
This is going to play out the exact same way, I think, on this. How do you see it?
Well, I'm not sure about that.
Okay. Convince me, sir.
Well, what you saw today, where the Republicans were unable to even get a vote, was that they declined the invitation by President Trump for them to commit political suicide. And that's essentially what it was, because he wanted them to vote on the ballroom. He wanted them to validate the $1.8 billion slush fund. And, of course, that's in the backdrop on the heels of what David and I have been focusing on, and that is the pay-for-play pardon issuance, where you pay a lot of money, you make a big contribution, you get a pardon. And that is a staggering lineup of corruption for folks to get behind. And I think the ballroom and the slush fund are very visible and very visceral for everyday people. So you're seeing a lot of Republicans push back, and they resisted even taking up a vote on continuing on the appropriations bill.
Congressman Min, I mean, the scale of the corruption here, as it pertains to these groups that are racist, that engage in insurrectionist activities, specifically the leader of the Proud Boys, Enrique Tarrio, who says he wants a piece of this $1.8 billion anti-weaponization fund, saying, quote, in a phone interview with the New Times on Wednesday morning, longtime Proud Boys leader Enrique Tarrio said that while he hasn't taken any concrete steps yet, he will definitely seek compensation from the money pop, which he described as another promise made, another promise kept by Trump. When you hear something like that, somebody who is sentenced to jail for 22 years by a jury of his peers, who got let out by Donald Trump in the January 6th pardoning, do you feel the public sees the level of corruption here? That someone who had gone to jail for 22 years, was supposed to go to jail for 22 years for insurrection against the United States, is now going to request millions from this fund?
No, it's so horrible. And I was someone who has spent my career fighting for the rule of law. I actually turned down Wall Street to go to the SEC to prosecute corporate fraud to start my career. I was a law professor at UC Irvine in my district before coming into Congress. And the level of corruption is just so outrageous right now. And I just want to point something out here. These January 6th insurrectionists, a lot of them had previous criminal records. A lot of them were guilty of violent crimes before. And a lot of them, since being released by Donald Trump, have gone on to commit additional crimes, including child pornography, child sexual assault, rape, assault. These are not good people. And there are people right now who have gone and done the worst things after being pardoned by Donald Trump, who are now set to receive millions of payments, $1 billion in payments. And that's just wrong. And that's one of the reasons that Senator Welch and I decided that we needed to go after this pardon power. One thing we're considering doing is talking about doing an op-ed around the pardon power, because it really hasn't been researched enough. But in the context of this settlement, this outrageous settlement, I just want to note something. I taught contracts law at UC Irvine. A settlement is a type of contract. And you can't have a contract when you don't actually have two parties. And that was something the judge was pointing out. This is not a real contract. It is an executive order issued by the DOJ. I believe it has no force of law. What they're doing right now is stealing $1.8 billion from something called the Judgment Fund at the Department of Justice. It's meant to settle actual litigation where the government owes money, maybe to settle where there's a real case. This doesn't qualify for any of that. What this is doing right now is just giving money as a policy decision to people who did very bad things. Now, if Donald Trump wants to make the case that we should be giving $1.8 billion out to the Proud Boys and J6 insurrectionists, he can make that case to Congress. but we are the ones who have the power of the purse, and he is right now violating the law just as he's done every single day in this administration, and there have to be consequences. We have to rein in that pardon power, among other things.
You know, I was thinking long and hard about this because I remember when the elections happened in Hungary and everybody was like, see, look, corruption. The people don't like corruption. This is maybe a foretelling of what could happen here in America if we just pay attention. And I agree. I don't think people like corruption, but I do think that a lot of folks in America are willing to look the other way if they feel as though they are getting something out of it. But right now, the American people, I mean, beef is up 16%, diesel is up 67%. These 1/3 of school districts in this country are cutting budgets, literally, so that they can keep the school buses running, cutting library budgets, all these things, because of what the government has done. But then you see folks like Mark Cuban standing behind the president the other day because, oh, he did this really good thing on drug that I agree with him on drug prices. And so how do you make the case that what the president is doing is not only an affront to our democracy, but illegal and, frankly, cheating the American people, and that this is a five-alarm fire when you got folks that, you know, are essentially in the coalition being like, well, maybe he's bad on that, but he's okay on this. I'm not going to take no questions about that other thing.
You mentioned Orban, and it was a combination of corruption and decline in their standard of living. In other words, there was a real willingness on the part of people to be, if they were upbeat economically, there would be a fight between the two parties. This is compared, him getting the $1.8 billion that he wants and selling pardons is combined with a budget that we were about to vote on that did nothing about health care costs, did nothing about electricity costs, did nothing about food costs, did nothing about gasoline. It was literally just a finger in the eye of folks who are struggling to pay their bills. And then you add to it what he fought for in this budget and was demanding of the Republican senators was the $1 billion for the ballroom and the $1.8 billion for a slush fund. So you combine those two things, and what's in it for anyone? And, you know, at the end of the day, people really are repulsed at this because Americans are willing to work hard. They don't mind hard work. But at the end of the month, they want to be a half a step ahead, not 2 steps behind, because we've got a government that's spending $1 billion on a ballroom and 1.8 on paying off criminals.
Congressman, I want to dance with you a little bit as a...
What kind of dance?
legal to legal. Two lawyers.
Salsa to tango.
Yeah, you know, because you know, whether I'm in a Giant or at a Target or in my neighborhood, I get a lot of people stopping to ask questions, and this issue, to your point, Senator, does resonate with a lot of people. They're just trying to understand the one fundamental question: how can he do this?
Yeah.
How can he do this?
Yeah.
How is it possible that he could actually get away with doing this?
Yeah.
Could you help folks kind of understand? Because you touched on it about this is not a legal contract situation. There's no meeting of the minds between the United States government and someone who has a claim, et cetera. Could you break that down, folks? Because folks really want to understand how the hell does he get away with this?
Well, I think lawyers around the country right now are asking the same question: how can he get away with this? And the answer is pretty simple. And keep in mind, I'm a freshman. I've been serving 16 months in Congress, the longest 16 months of my life. I didn't have this many gray hairs before I started. But, you know, what I've observed is that House Republicans are all single-issue voters, and that issue is whether they're on Team Trump or not. And when you have a Congress that's this feckless, the majority is this feckless, and completely decides that they want to look the other way under the leadership, quote-unquote, of what I call meeker Mike Johnson, because not a speaker, he's a meeker, and he's out there turning a blind eye to all this. And we are Congress. We are supposed to assert our authority, and they are not doing that. And so right now we're very frustrated in the minority. When we take back the majority, and I believe we will take it back in decisive way later this year, we have to let people know right now that there will be consequences, and that's why it's so important that we do things like this pardons letter that Senator Welch and I did. That it's so important that we lay the marker on what we're going to do on oversight so that people are reminded that, hey, Donald Trump might not be president forever, and there may very well be consequences. And I just want to point out that this pardons issue is even more offensive than people are realizing, because there are billions of dollars in quote-unquote restitution that these white-collar criminals, like the founder of Binance, who was convicted of securities fraud, he was supposed to pay something like $600 million to the victims of his fraud. And that money just got taken back by Donald Trump when he pardoned these people. He pardoned dozens and dozens of people, billions of dollars. Now, so not only are these people out of jail, but but the billions of dollars that they owed to victims of these frauds are now wiped out.
And not even to mention, as we unfortunately
The
have to say
debt goes
goodbye
up.
here.
Yeah.
Well, not only does the debt go up, but not only is he willing to do that, but with no mention of the Epstein victims who have not seen any type of acknowledgement, let
It's
alone
funny that the
reparations.
people he goes after on the Republican side are all the same people who voted to release the Epstein files. It makes you think, right?
It does make you think. Senator Peter Welch and Congressman Dave Min, thank you both very, very much.
Thank you.